class participation
And
attendance.
then, right,
Come on,
10%,
10%.
right. Okay, good evening all. How are we doing today?
Good evening. Fine, thank you. Yourself?
Fine, thank you. Okay, I trust that we all had a productive week. And we are here ready to get all this information and have a very provocative discussion. Now, today, hopefully some of you would have read the newspaper and are gonna get your 5% for attending your civic organization. But I wanna start off with the homework. Overall, I was pleased. However, and I thought persons are on the right track and we are testing understanding and comprehension. And from what I saw in the essays, persons understood, they were able to provide an overview and they comprehend. Where I saw a lot of persons did not, I guess, do as well as on the Bahamian side of things. And again, the question didn't specifically ask you that. It asked you to provide an overview of the drug trafficking cases. But I asked you to, in preparations, I can't give you the question on the final exam, but I was trying to give you enough information as to when you're answering this question, try and make it as relatable to the Bahamas as possible. So you'll be a step ahead in your final, right? And so that's why, persons may say, well, Ms. Bullard graded me and said the Bahamas wasn't included in the question, didn't specifically ask, but I asked that verbally, without giving you the details of the question that'll be on the final exam, so you'll be prepared. And so because I asked that verbally, I don't know if persons forgot. Some people seem to misunderstand. In the Bahamas, we haven't tried many persons with money laundering. Right. With drug trafficking, we have tried a lot of persons. Okay. And money laundering has just become a predicate crime as of 2018, and drug trafficking falls under money laundering as one of those 21 crimes. Okay. And so I think one or two persons were confused because they did write about the Bahamas not trying anybody for drug trafficking, but they would have meant money laundering. So there was a bit of confusion. So drug trafficking, many cases. It being under money laundering only as of 2018 and becoming a predicate crime, or there's an additional charge, like charged with drug trafficking and as money laundering as well. So an additional charge. So just so the persons who confused it a little bit, they would understand. Almost 50% of the persons that wrote about the Bahamas, they wrote about Norman's Key back in the day. There have been many other cases since Norman's Key and whatever happened back in the 70s or late 80s. I was surprised, and so that's why I felt that persons didn't make the connection. One of the cases talked about drug trafficking through prisons. And if we go online, there's almost 100 cases where prison officers traffic drugs through the prison, police officers, and most recently, somebody purporting to be a lawyer traffic drugs. She got a fake ID and she pretended to be, she was an attorney for. Okay. Yeah, she purported to be a lawyer, fake ID, fake bar association certificate, and her whole purpose was to traffic drugs through the prison. Are we familiar with those cases?
I vaguely remember that one about
The female lawyer. Okay, but you don't know the cases about all those prison officers and police officers? Right. So I didn't see people make that connection.
Think about drug trafficking in Bahamas. I thought it was, what I understood was to speak to a case with money laundering in the Bahamas.
No, drug trafficking. But if you speak to money laundering, 21 crimes now fit under money laundering. Which one? And remember, that's why I said our topic, if you look at the Egmont group, it has topics: fraud, human trafficking, terrorism, drug trafficking. And so that's why I specifically said our topic for this semester is drug trafficking. Yeah, so the question is going to be geared towards drug trafficking. And so that's why I want you all to, you know, go out there and do some research. Okay, 1 or 2 persons mentioned cases related to the casino and drug trafficking. And so I was pleased with that. But 1 person mentioned about trafficking drugs through the prison. However, they didn't give an example of a case. So I just want to know if, you know, did we make that connection? Nell, because you did it, Renelle, you did that question. Did you make that connection? Or is it clearer now?
What is that?
In your essay, the numerous cases that we have in the Bahamas about drug trafficking through our prison.
Yeah, I think I did include that.
Okay, you were that 1 person. Okay. Okay, good. Just making sure.
I think I did include it. I think I wrote on 90.
Okay, yes, you did. Yeah.
I mean, I had a whole bunch of.
Right, and then we have 90, and we have the white major. I know somebody spoke about the white major. Yeah, so we want, basically what you read in the book, are there similar cases in the Bahamas?
Yes.
Right. Okay, and so, again.
But what I noticed with our information, you kind of have to read between the lines or try to dig as deep as you could go, because unlike, you know, with news around the world, we hardly provide, you know, details about certain things.
Yeah, so the Tribune and the Guardian both have a lot of stories, as well as the Supreme Court is online. So if you see something in the Tribune and the Guardian and it doesn't give specifics of the case, you could go to the Supreme Court online and just in the search put the name and the case should come up.
Okay, because when you go to Google and all of that, the case did not
come up. Yeah. Go to tribune242.com or the nassauguardian.com and you should be able to pull up various cases.
Yeah, I was able to pull up the cases on Tribune and Guardian. Yeah, but they only give so much information, and then it only goes so far back too. So
okay, but most recently there were a lot of cases with the prison where drugs were being trafficked through the prison. Okay, so again, in prior courses that we held, there were no essays and there was no homework. After I saw persons were struggling, I implemented, you know, homework. So by the time you get to the final exam, this would have been 1 essay, because again, there's a mandatory question worth 20 points. You would have already practiced it. So you don't have to scramble at the end of the semester trying to, you know, focus just on your mandatory question and forget about the other 4 you have to write. Okay, so again, I tweaked the program a little bit to give you as much information as possible so you could have sufficient practice. That's why you also have classwork. Okay?
For this course, just to be clear, we only have the 1 essay.
Yeah, you only have the 1 essay. Now, persons, again, you can complete all of them just for practice. Okay? But you won't get a grade. You only get the grade for the 1. Because persons are asking, can I redo it? Can I do more than 1? No. It's only 1, because I had to stretch the course to even include that 1 and include the classwork, because I saw that for the first time, persons were saying questions, they know the answer, but they weren't able to tie it in. They didn't know this what we was asking. They didn't know this was the question about sanctions, because it gave the other definitions or terminologies that you know, of UN, under the UN order or what have you, and persons weren't able to make the connection, so they just didn't answer questions on sanctions. And so that's why the classwork is there and the essays are there for practice. Okay, so feel free to practice and ask any questions, but in terms, just 1 essay to be submitted to go towards your grade. Okay, but like I said, overall, I was very pleased for the most part, everybody proved their understanding and that they comprehend, and that's exactly what we're testing. Okay? Any other questions or concerns regarding the homework? No? Okay, so what to do is, and I gave a question. Okay, so for the most part, persons just need to find Bahamian cases related to drug trafficking and find out exactly what's happening in the Bahamas for the final exam, now that you already have the overview. So just hold on to your essay, use that as your study guide, and then you can continue the research to, add the Bahamian cases that are applicable. And by the time as we get to the final, you will be ready. Okay, Cassandra, go ahead.
I wanted to do the question on tax evasion and tax avoidance, but that isn't due until sometime in April. I wanted to submit it tomorrow. Could I do that, or should I wait until April?
Yeah, you should wait until April.
Okay.
You can complete it. You can complete it and hold it till the submission date. You don't have to wait until April to do it.
Okay, and I also wanted you to look at another question for me. But that one's due before, and I don't want that one to be taken as the one I'm submitting, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's a question on, if you look, I think it's the last question on tax evasion and tax. What question is that, Cassandra, on the list?
I think that's number 4.
Number 4. You see it, number 4? Okay, she's the lady in class. She's just looking through her notes.
I'll find it.
Okay, she'll find it. Okay, any other questions or concerns? No? Okay, good. Did anybody read the newspaper?
I have a question that I wasn't able to stay in the entire class because my internet dropped last week. So did I miss anything like of importance that I should make note of? Because I didn't have time to listen to the recording as yet.
Okay, you're gonna have to listen to the recording because I don't know, I can't remember exactly when you got dropped off, so I wouldn't know what you would have missed. So listen to the recording, and then, as far as I know, there's no homework or anything other than what's already scheduled. So just when you get some time, listen, and then let me know if you have any questions.
Will do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, can I do my contribution?
Sorry, we can't hear you, Nikisha.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to do some contributions, if that's okay.
You just wanted to do?
Make some contributions, if that's okay.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I actually came across 2 articles. The first one is in yesterday's business section of the Tribune. And it's actually an article by Hubert Edwards. He used to be at Bank of the Bahamas back in the day. I'm not sure. I think he's a consultant now. But he is actually talking about potential for tax reform and what that will mean if the EU reconsiders its position on who is to be included or excluded from the blacklisting. So apparently by the end of 2021, they are supposed to do a review to see if the inclusions or exclusions are still relevant. And one of the recommendations that Oxfam International gave was that any country who is 0 or low corporate tax jurisdiction will be automatically included on the blacklist. So his article is basically suggesting that we get ahead of the assessment and actually start to talk now and be proactive about what our response would be, or even how we prove that we are not just ticking the box in terms of tax compliance. So that was in yesterday's paper.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, and there's been a long-standing argument. What are business license fees?
A tax.
Right. And so we are seeing internationally as not having a corporate tax. But if you want a business incorporated, if their business license fees, there's no longer just $100, but it's based on the revenue that your business brings in. I don't know, is that not a corporate tax? Or I wonder what falls on the corporate tax? Like, what is it, why they internationally we're seen as not having a corporate tax when I would imagine, or do you know that, is that another form of tax?
Is it based on their income, like a percentage of their income or no?
Yes, it's depending. Okay, so if you, I don't know if there's a threshold.
Yeah.
And so the normal small businesses, they pay the $100, but larger businesses that make over, I don't know, I think it's $100,000 or more, then you pay based on the revenue, and you pay a percentage.
Miss, oh my goodness, Miss
Fuller.
Fuller. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
You're on target. The percentage is around about 2%, but it depends based on how high your revenue goes. So they have a staggered measure. I don't know exactly what it is, but they have a staggered measure what they use as an analysis in their department. They send it to you by before March 31st of every year, because the filing has to be completed by a certified public accountant and signed off by the 31st. It has to be submitted along with any other information that you need to accompany your business license request. Inland Revenue will approve it between the end of February, the end of March, and you have to pay by the 31st unless you will be fined. And
Okay.
you cannot do any other business after the 31st in the country if you are a regulated business and you have no business license. So which means that you cannot bring in your goods, or you wouldn't be able to transact certain services with any of your other providers because you have nothing on file to prove that you should be doing business.
Okay, so Cassandra is, because I just Googled corporate tax just to, and it says a corporate tax is a tax on the profits of a corporation.
Yeah, that sounds like a tax.
So then what are we in fear of if we already have this staggered rate in place, and we should not be expected to be blacklisted, and there are no changes that have to be made then, correct?
That's
That would be a fair assumption, but I think, the point is too that we have to stop waiting until people like being reactive to situations. So coming to the table now, and even if that is our response, at least having a formal response as a country and not waiting and scurrying around once they do decide, or if they do decide to blacklist us at the end of 2021.
That's what
Right,
Peter
but
Turnquist
again-
said in 2017 too.
Right.
Sorry.
Sorry.
What she said just now is what Peter Turnquist said back in 2017 when they were thinking about blacklisting us for not having the bilateral tax approach. Sorry, the multilateral tax approach. When we approached the OECD for the multilateral tax scheme. I was looking it up today as part of tax evasion and avoidance. He was saying that we don't need to wait until we get blacklisted to get ahead of it, basically.
Okay, and Lakeisha, you were saying we just need to respond and let them know we do have this corporate tax in place and this is how it works.
I mean, I think we should at least be prepared to, and not.
But you don't think we have done it already?
I think we have, and I think I have a different story on the whole situation. So I kind of feel like Peter Turnquist and that we just being bullied, right? Because ultimately all of these countries are just looking towards their best interests, and they could care less really about our jurisdiction as the Bahamas. But we really, I think personally, have to be more aggressive as well and stop laying down when who we consider or who regulators may consider the big man comes in and says, you must do, you must do, you must do. But that's just my personal side of it.
Okay, and so again, remember now, we took the staggered approach because again, every time we implement these policies and procedures, there's costs involved. And then institutions trickles down, some institutions close out. And again, like I said, we've lost 17% of GDP. So can we really just, I don't know if we're sending correspondence that, listen, what does it mean to put this tax in place? And just like America went through it, they spent $380 million to put in FACA. Okay, we're 10 times smaller than 100 times smaller than America, right? And so we don't have that type of money to, I guess right away. And so I don't know, are we communicating that we need, this is the net effect of putting this in place. And so may need a time frame without being blacklisted, because we understand we have to meet international standard. However, the net effect is 10 institutions closing out. Let's give them some time to, generate the income to be able to afford to be able to put these policies and procedures in place. Perhaps, I don't know if they will even understand the staggered approach that we have to take towards these things. And then what doesn't help is that we made tax evasion a crime in 2018 when we repealed and replaced all of the laws. However, only in the Bahamas. So if you evaded like custom tax and VAT and what have you. And so we now in December 2020 updated it. Of course, that's why some of them blacklisted us again, and then we made it internationally. And so I guess that was a 2-year period where they felt that we intentionally did that. But I think we had to do it because, again, FACA and to implement FACA and CRS, there was a cost. Okay, and if America spent millions, I'm certain the Bahamas spent at least 1 million. And do we really have that type of money to invest in? And that was just one of the many. We had 22 deficient recommendations that all had a cost attached to it. So I'm wondering if they are judging us or beating us with their step because they have to do it. They are much larger countries. They have the revenue or what have to implement it right away. I don't know. But then again, like having a seat at the table matters as well. But what I'm trying to understand what Hubert Edwards is saying though, because is he not considering the corporate tax already being in place or?
Yes, he is. But what he's also considering is that, okay, maybe it's not a good time to introduce this because no one's really going to do it before an election. But people both parties should probably sit down and now try to come up with a strategy.
Introduce what though? It's been like this from a few years ago.
Okay, let me read what I'm saying.
This isn't something new. That's what I'm saying. So
I understand what you're saying.
Why are you purporting that we could possibly be blacklisted when we have a corporate tax unless there's something else? And that's why I went to Google to find out what else.
A corporate tax was.
That's it. You're right.
Yeah, because he specifically says that we probably need to get together and create a full study, and I'm quoting, create a full study of the tax system with a clear focus on alternatives and the need to address potential inequities. And considering that there would be no increase or levying of additional taxes prior to the election, which is to be held constitutionally by May 2022, it may be best for both parties to sit down and have a bilateral participation in the said study, what he's referring to.
Okay, so I guess he means we need to say, this is our corporate tax. This is how it works. What are the gaps? What is different between our tax versus the international tax that makes you feel that we have an edge, okay, or an advantage?
Yes.
Right. Okay, good. Very
so
good.
My second contribution, I have one more after this. My second contribution, I actually came across an article on ACAMS that talks about the Edmond Group, and it just recently issued a warning on governments using financial crime investigations to their benefit. So I thought that was pretty interesting because apparently they got some tips that some FIUs, they didn't name the FIUs, and actually when some people queried, they refused to name them. But they've been told that some FIUs are misusing their powers for political gain. And some of the examples they gave was in South Africa. Let me go to it. So apparently the first one was in Russia. So the opposer to elect to the Kremlin government came back to Moscow in January 2021 after surviving a poisoning attempt. And then they immediately arrested him and charged him with embezzling 588 million rubles, which equates to some 6.8 million euros. Because he is obviously the opposition to the now ruler of Moscow. And then he was, yes.
Navalny? Okay, Navalny.
Navalny,
Yeah.
yes.
So how did he use that for political gain?
No, not he. They're saying the Russian government is now using the FIU and financial crime to, what am I looking for? Not bully, but intimidate, I guess. Intimidate opponents. So he was the one who actually got arrested once he returned to Russia in 2021. And then he also had some previous cases against him in 2024 that caused him to be on house arrest. And so they're saying that they gave that as an example of the government using agencies like the FIU to be politically motivated. Then there's also a case they gave an example of where the lady who was supposed to run as an opposition in Africa, the first female candidate, was recently arrested as well on suspicion of financing terrorism. So they just issued a warning saying this is serious. It's important that the FIUs, while they realize that government has some sort of influence in terms of hiring and policy, etc., it's important that we do not FIUs do not abuse their powers and remain as independent as possible in order to sustain the credibility of the framework, basically. Sorry?
She's asking which article was that?
I can actually drop it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Let me do that
Okay.
now.
Yeah. I'm still a bit confused as to how, and I guess I have to read the article to understand. I had a case where there, just like the Lincoln Bain new group, I don't know what's the name of it, and his candidates in Malaysia, this guy came up with a new group to, I guess, run a new political party, and there was a lot of negative media put out against him in his past or what have you, saying that he was charged with various money laundering crimes. And the FIU in Malaysia did send us a production order to, freeze his account and send information. And it took 2 years, they investigated. And then at the end of the investigation, they sent us a letter saying that they could not find any evidence to prove that he was charged with anything in Malaysia. And they felt as if the present government that was in place, like it was almost like a witch hunt, and so we almost closed out his account and de-risked him, but because he was a part of a larger group, that was the only reason his account was not closed. If he was not, because the people had threatened, if we closed his account, he was tied to like 10 other accounts, they would close the other 10 accounts. So when our board met, the board said, okay, let's just hold on. Let's send all the information to the FIU and see what happens. And over a 2-year period, he just simply, his money sat there. But we were very, very surprised that they sent us a letter stating that they could not find, any charges that were levied against him in his past, never money laundering. And it was all over the news. We had like 5 to 7 articles. And so we were very surprised. So I guess once you drop it in the chat, I will look that up because I'm wondering if this is something similar and it actually happened to us. Okay.
Okay. It's
Good.
there.
Thank you, Nikisha, for sharing.
One last one. Sorry.
Sorry. No. Go ahead.
No. So I just also for my networking sat in on a Toastmasters meeting yesterday, and coincidentally it was the Advanced Toastmasters Club 7108 where my sister is a part, and she was actually the moderator yesterday. But they had a very good presentation on actually mastering presentation and using descriptive language. And so it was a really good, I guess, and especially in my role as an internal auditor, I guess refreshing yourself on how to make presentations both verbally and written, and making sure your message comes across clearly. So that's all from me.
Okay, and did they have a word for the day?
No, it was just like there was the international president, Richard Beck, and so it was almost like his training per se, or his coming to them and giving them their thought of the day, basically, for the leadership of that group.
Okay, and what was the thought of the day?
The thought of the day was, can you see it? So when you communicate, make sure you can see internally what you want others to see, and then that'll help you convey your message much better.
Okay, okay, very good. Did you network? Did you introduce yourself? Did you meet anybody?
Not outside of my sister, but I know them.
Okay,
I kind of know them through her, so it wasn't like a real networking, no, I would say.
okay. So you found it beneficial and you're going to return where you will introduce yourself and network?
Yeah, so that was the advanced club. There's actually another club that meets, that they're the parent to, I would say, for lack of a better term. So I'll sit on that when they meet next week to see how that goes.
Okay, okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And if you do have invites, I have a lot of persons reaching out to me, say, please send us an invite. So
Okay.
if you are going to attend the meeting, please share. You all do have a WhatsApp group, correct?
Yeah.
Please drop it in the WhatsApp group and take a class member, and that's the beginning of your networking, because we're not in class, and I know online we never see these persons, but please take somebody with you from the class and build a study relationship, or a business corporate relationship, and network with the persons in your class. But please invite persons. Another thing that I want to say is I have some persons from a previous class that did not do as well as they wanted to do. However, they did not get any points for participation, because when I called their name, I either had to repeat myself 3 times or they did not respond. Secondly, the 5%, if you have 63%, that means I would have given you, I don't want to fail anybody for 2 points. That means I would have turned your paper upside down and straight, and went back to the cross marker and say, please don't fail this person. Okay, and if you did fail, that means there was no way. And then the cross marker would say, let me see the participation, let me see the civic organization. No, then no. Okay, so post, I have persons, with discrepancies on their grades, and they simply do not have the 10% and they do not have the 5%. That you get it during the class, you don't get it after. Okay, I don't know if I said this to you, because I sound like a broken record. This is like the 3rd class I'm saying this to. Please take advantage. These are benefits of the class. Please take advantage. Read the newspaper, share, attend the civic organization. Don't come afterwards and harass Miss Bullitt and say, I need to see my paper, and turn it upside down, when clearly you almost passed, but you don't have the extra points to be good. So please, I have a list now, because persons are saying, yes, they did speak, I didn't give them full points. It's 10 beats. If you speak once, you don't get full points. It doesn't work like that. So I have a list, and every time you speak, I put the date and I put a tick next to your name. Okay, because this is where we're at, where persons are saying that, I guess, I'm unfairly holding these points, when I, advocated for all these extra stuff to ensure that everybody is successful. So please take advantage of the benefits. Do not come afterwards and say Ms. Bullitt didn't give you 5% when you did not attend your civic organization. Another thing, again, the purpose is networking. I had a class last night where a person said, oh, Ms. Bullitt, I went to Toastmasters. What was it about? I can't remember who spoke. I don't know. What was the word for the day? Or they didn't have a word for the day. What are you sharing? Did you introduce yourself? No, I didn't really know those people. Why am I giving you 5%? It doesn't work like that. Okay, so if nobody is clear on what needs to be done for the 5%, then let me know. But I can't just give it to you because you went and didn't pay attention. And one other girl said, well, I was in it, but then my husband called me for something and then I just totally forgot about it. But I still get my 5%. No. Okay? So we all clear and we understand. Don't compose. And if you truly want the percentage, these are being recorded, and when persons are getting all those A's, they want to say, Miss Fuller, let's go see if these people actually did it. I mean, they don't check everybody, but they do fact check to see if these things actually occurred. Because why are these people getting these A's, and this course used to be so difficult and what have you. Okay, so please, do your part and use your benefits during the class. Miss, well, nobody else is gonna have my number, and nobody else is gonna email me afterwards, and you have to leave at the office. I don't give out grades. I'm not even allowed to. Okay, so let's be proactive. Let's be better than the government and not reactive. Okay. Wait, I have a message. I know that.
I read the newspaper too.
Hi, Miss Bullard.
Okay, just 1 minute. I'm taking a message. Somebody sent a text. Okay. Oh, okay, yes. Okay, yes. Go ahead. That's fine.
Hi, Miss Bullard. Yes, this is Rochetta. I did attend a Toastmasters meeting on March 13th. That was Saturday past. It's Division 1 of Southeast Florida and the Bahamas. So it's like the Bahamas Integrated Toastmasters. That's Club 7820731. This was for my 5 points. Their speaker was Toastmaster Basil Gray, and they had a special guest. Her name was Yuda Wickman Ashby. She was actually from Barbados. She's I think one of the leaders of the Barbados National Organization of the Disabled. So it's an integration club. So it's an integration of persons with disabilities. They started off with a prayer, national anthem, and then the moderator was Toastmaster Desmond Brown. They had the introduction of the executive board, all the executive board members. They had about 20 persons in attendance. Mr. Spurgeon Neely, he did the welcome. Then the chairman, Miss Natalie Russell, did the word of the day, which was Bonda. It's actually spelled B-O-N-Z as in zebra, E-R, but it's pronounced Bonder, and it actually means wonderful. So they were like asking persons to use the word in a sentence. I was invited because I was asking about it, asking someone about it, and so they introduced me, and so I was able to say hello to everyone. Then they did table topics, and the table topics was centered around COVID, a time for change, and so their whole theme that evening is called Spring. It's your season to bloom. So the guest speaker, Miss Basil Gray, her topic was, spring, it's your season to bloom. And she talked about the different projects that she worked on and how she bloomed from it by how much she learned and how much she grew during those projects that she thought that she couldn't do. And she encouraged everyone to, to do your best, no matter what your fears are. But, at the end of the day, you have to try, because that's when you find your strength. And then the guest speaker, Miss Ashby, she's actually visually impaired. She's a social worker in Barbados, and she spoke on preparing for your future, examining yourself, and speaking positively over your life, and using your platform to propel others to do what it is that they need to do, and helping to enrich everyone's lives around you, and things like that. So it was very inspirational, and being an integrated club and you watching people with disabilities, it was very inspiring. I actually really enjoyed it. They did ask me a question, so they really didn't catch me off guard because I was tuned in, but I was able to answer the question, so it was really fun. And then they had like an evaluation of the meeting, and then they did like a closing. So yeah, that was what I did Saturday night.
Okay, excellent, very good for that. Thank you for sharing with us. And again, I'm happy you found it beneficial, and please, if you attend again, please send out an invite to the group and take somebody with you.
Definitely.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, somebody else wanted to speak?
Hey, Cassandra. I read in the paper on Wednesday in the Tribune that the U.S. queries the Bahamas' financial crime pursuit. So it was about 2 pages. So I'm gonna, cut it short, make it nice and condensed. The U.S. is saying that based on the size of our financial economy, the number of STRs being presented to the FIU is too low. They're saying that in 2019, it dropped by 67%, and in 2020, it dropped by 12%, which gives an overall 71% drop over 2-year periods, and they don't find that appealing at all. They are really concerned about the web shop gambling, and they're feeling that it's not properly regulated, which is leading to this decrease in STRs being reported. In response, Mr. Bethel said that you can't mitigate all risk, but they are surely looking forward to increasing their diligence in that area. I found it very interesting since I'm looking at tax evasion and avoidance now, and the gaming sector is interesting to me.
Okay, great. Good. And that's another thing. Doesn't gaming pay like $1 million in taxes? Isn't that corporate tax as well? I mean, I'm just trying to think back to the, I can't get over it. That the gaming, they pay like $1 million, and then each person has to be registered with the gaming board, and that has a tax against it. So, I have to get to the bottom of this corporate tax thing. But yes, very good, Cassandra. And do you know, as a member of BACO, they have a lot of, they used to have a lot of lunch and learns. Now everything is online. But every time the FIU has presented, whether it was a central bank or Securities Commission seminar or some type of anti-money laundering seminar, they have always said the same thing, that the industry does not submit the STRs, the suspicious transaction reports. And for the last 10 years, I would say, I would have been working in compliance. And so out of the 100 STRs I might have filed, I have never gotten a response until after 2018. And this is the first time ever, you know what I mean? And so as I go to these BACO meetings and they stand up and they make, the director comes and says this, there's always a rebuttal from the industry saying that, but we never get a response. And if we do get a response, the response is no further investigation. We get a production order, we send all these, we either get no further investigation or we don't get a response at all. And so the industry, always, that's the response. So, and somebody even went as far as said that we can't just make something up. We have a risk framework, and we're going to talk about risk right now. We have a risk framework in place, and our clients are properly scrutinized. And so, therefore, we do not, there's no nothing to report, because once we would have properly assessed the risk, we are keeping the files for the central bank says if you reject somebody, keep the file because they want to create their own blacklist. So I can say at that point, when we would have rejected the client, we don't sit down and fill out an SDR and say, hey, check into this person. Perhaps we should do that. But as far as the industry is concerned, we don't feel like, we've been turning a blind eye and not submitting the SDRs. I mean, in some cases, like I say, for the last 10 years, we say it was a waste of time. However, after 2018, I have now seen, like I said, even it was the FIU from Malaysia who got involved, who spoke to the FIU in Bahamas, and with that particular case I was dealing with. And I was so surprised when they sent me a letter saying no further investigation, they cannot find anything, we can release these funds, and I was surprised I got a response. And recently, they've changed the director, they've hired a lot of analysts, and so they are, just like the analytics department at the Securities Commission and the central bank, they are now more hands-on. And they do have an online system that is a better tracking device that you can actually see that your SDR was filed, like say 130 days and you have not had a response. And so I guess they have a good key system in place now that we send out a reminder. So I guess we'll see how it goes, and hopefully, more institutions will be comfortable with, filing these SDRs. But another incident I had was our parent was in Switzerland, and we shared the same client. The client was open in Switzerland, and my head of compliance sat in Switzerland. I called him on the phone. I said, listen, this person has been charged with embezzlement down in Panama. I'm going to file an SDR. And he said, oh, it's okay. You don't have to file that SDR because we have the account open here and we're happy with him. And I said, how can you be happy with him if he's going to jail for money laundering? How? And so I said, well, anyway, I'm happy that you are happy with him. However, I'm not happy with him, so I'm going to file my SDR based on this charge and based on that this person is going to jail. So, let them tell me they're happy with him, and then I'll release these funds. Okay, so it really, really depends, but it's two sides to that story. So, I mean, yeah, that's the story regarding SDRs. But for years, it's been the same thing. And even internationally, when they came in, when the part of the help that they said they was going to get, the FIU was educating the industry on what they should be filing the SDRs on. But like I said, they're more responsive now. So times have changed. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, good read. Okay, Erica, all week I've been trying to answer your question about the sanctions. I went back to the United Nations. Let me share my screen.
Okay.
So were you able to ask your compliance and get any answers or no?
Sure, Miss Bullard. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Honestly.
Okay. So if you look at the screen, you see I'm on the website, right? And they should have a legend, or they should tell you exactly what they mean. So I went down and there's practices, procedures, and working methods. And under that tab, then it says glossary. So I've been clicking on this all week, and I don't know if the website was broken, but it can go through. So I'm trying now. Okay, and there we go. It comes up now. And so in the glossary, do you recall which one you were querying or no?
It was one would say good, something with good in it. Let me see. I don't see anything.
Okay,
Once
let me
I
go
see,
back.
I know.
Let me go back and, no, that's not there. No, there. Where did I go? So let's look at the letters. So we can pull it up. Yeah, so I just want to show you. So in your, because again, terminology and all these acronyms are not always clear, but you want to know exactly what you're doing and make sure you understand it properly. So let's look back at it. Good aliasing. Okay.
Let's see.
Let's see. So go down and look at the list. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Good quality,
Right, good
AKA.
quality, right.
Yeah, so I don't know if AKA means like alias or what have you, but let's go in the glossary and see if it says good quality, AKA anywhere.
No, because it appears to be
And
in alphabetical order.
yeah, yeah. So I don't see. Yeah, I don't see that. And so let's go back. Let's see. Perhaps let's look at the handbook. Okay, yeah, no. Okay, so don't worry. I'll find out one day eventually.
I'll try remember for next time.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was trying to pull this glossary up last week, it wouldn't even come up. So it's up now. So that's a start. And so we'll get to the bottom of it. But more than likely, I think it's referring to whether the alias is a good quality alias or not a good quality alias. I don't know, but we'll find out.
Okay.
That's our task. Okay.
Yes,
Good.
I'll try remember.
Okay,
Miss,
good.
Ms. Buller, I also had a
Yes?
contribution if it's fine.
Yes, go ahead.
My contribution was about the income tax avoidance. I don't know if that was spoke about as yet.
No.
Yeah, so with the country analysis, they note that unfortunately, it says the headline is overdue. Income tax avoidance, an untenable position for the Bahamas in the long run. So unfortunately, they're saying the VAT thing isn't really working in the way in which they wanted it to. I guess we could debate on that, but basically income tax is something that they're going to really put pressure on in order for that to be up and running. So that's something that we would just need to prepare ourselves for.
Is it
A part of the
VAT?
2030 agenda.
Is it VAT or are they speaking of where we put it in tax evasion into law, but we only made it applicable to the Bahamas, not internationally?
No. They wasn't talking about so much like about that. They're saying the fact about tax avoidance, income tax avoidance. So not about evasion. No, for years we've been avoiding the fact that we want to get our income taxed. We don't really want that. But they're saying that that's appearing to be unavoidable.
Okay, I get you. So other than NIV.
Yeah, other than NIB, they're gonna want to get that income tax.
They want, because I know Barbados has like a social security as well as a tax on the income.
Yeah, so that is possibly looking to be a part of the 2030 agenda.
2030?
Especially with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. I could share the article in the group as well because I got it offline.
Okay, great.
So yeah, basically that's something that they're saying to be prepared for, because it's putting pressure on the Bahamas because of the GDP is insufficient to sustain the debt and the expenditure.
Okay, and so, again, go ahead.
I don't know how much they will be asking of our income tax, but I guess we could look at similar countries and see. But I feel as though as a way to prepare yourself is probably start taking it out of your income yourself and putting it in a savings which you don't touch. Therefore, it not so much even a pension, it'll just be something that you will already be used to, knowing that it's on the horizon.
Correct. That's a good idea. And again, enough of us need to be other future leaders and take these leading positions, please, because I have no problem with taxes, and I understand that in order for the country to stop borrowing and function properly, we need taxes. However, I need responsible, ethical people at the helm to make sure when I ride on the road, there's no potholes. My children can safely go to the government schools, and I have no concern about education or violence. I could go and sit in PMH and lay up in there comfortably and not have a concern, and I have no problems at all. So please, 2030, that's a very long time, and we can be very, very proactive. Each political leader needs 3 strong people behind him or her to be effective. So build your network, get your 3 people, and your please. I want to be able to call Symphony and Nakisha and Cassandra on the phone and say, listen, the road need to fix. Y'all already take my money out my salary. I need to go to PMH. All right, I need a direct cell number. Okay, so it have to be the people we know already. So that's why I say get this network together. Okay,
I
good.
agree. I agree with that, Ms. Bullitt. However, at the same time, I recognize that it's not just going to take one particular push. It's have to be a mass push for reform. And at the end of the day, we know that based on history, it always takes a season of things for things to blow over.
Right. Right.
So I also wanted to mention too that another article I found was about crowdfunding. I really don't really understand what it really is, but I am very much interested in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
There's this
crowd-
young Bahamian called DRC Raming Jr. Apparently his business is called Arawak X. And he is starting some crowdfunding thing here to raise equity, and it's already licensed.
Okay, so you understand GoFundMe, right?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and so that's what essentially crowdfunding is. It's just the platform on which persons can send their donations. And so again, GoFundMe was established in America, and one of the criteria is that you must be an American citizen so that America could get their taxes or whatever is due to them before you send all this money to your country or wherever it's from. And that's why we're having the problem with head notes right now. That money from Hurricane Matthew or Hurricane Joaquin is still being held in excess of $1 million, right? And so they're fighting that out in court. But recently, Alive, I spoke to somebody at Alive, but Alive has a platform for crowdfunding, and that platform is being licensed by the Securities Commission. And so I asked you all last week or the week before, are compliance professionals sufficiently trained in fintech and red tech? And I said, go subscribe.
What is red tech?
The regulation that will go along with fintech. Yeah, right. And so I said, go sign up with the Securities Commission and follow their fintech hub. Remember I said that? Right. And so if you go on the Securities Commission site, you will see that under one of those regulations is crowdfunding.
Because apparently, according to the article, he said he already hired a CEO, a CFO, a compliance officer, and an MLRO, technology architect, project manager, chief community officer, and office administrator. So that's at least about 10 jobs right there.
Right. But if you go, Alive has the platform out there already, and people are Rotary.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, Rotary has all of their different initiatives up that you can contribute to. So go on Alive website, because I spoke to the principals of Alive when they were getting regulated to ensure that they had the proper policies and procedures in place to carry it out. So follow it.
Oh yeah, they have plenty of stuff on here.
Yeah. So that's why you have to familiarize yourself.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah. And so you could say these things are legit or not, because there's a lot of scams out there. So you want to make sure that the policies and procedures are in place. If something was to happen, where do I go? If there's an issue, is there a regulator? So okay.
So my question is, and this is my last question before, so we could continue, is I know you sort of touched on something briefly before, but is there like any of these commissions have almost like a mentor program to say, okay, well, you possibly might be an up and coming compliance professional. Here is a platform or an association for you all. Is there anything out there like that?
The IC Central Bank has a learning center. Like they have a apprenticeship program. They have almost every seminar, every industry briefing, whatever. Both them and the Securities Commission have all the decks and the information from seminars and what have you on their website. But Central Bank actually has an apprenticeship program. So I don't know what areas, and you could probably visit their website and see, but go on their website and all the information is there.
Okay then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, very good. Thank you all for sharing. I recorded those names. I want to ensure, if you have any suggestions on how to ensure that everybody's engaged, just let me know. What I've been doing in my other classes is just assigning a topic to each person so each person can make a contribution, because I'm seeing that each week we're having a difficulty reading. So perhaps to help, I can assign a topic, so I can ensure that everybody contributes. Okay, so did we read chapter 4? You know, that's my favorite question every week. Did you
Yes.
read it?
I read it.
Yes, we did.
Okay, okay, and so give me some feedback on what you read again. Risk management and a risk-based approach. What, let's start with what recommendation are we talking about again? Do we know?
The
Where
first?
does this- Yes, yes, very good. Again, right back to chapter 1 where we said, and even we talked extensively in intro about this risk-based approach. And so, you know, people throw this word around and we don't really know what it means.
For real.
And so, yeah, so again, it used to be a rules-based approach prior where, you know, it was like a check the box type of situation. Do you do this? Yes or no? And they found that, you know, it was not effective. And so they also saw that there wasn't a one size fits all approach for, and you know, a sector, because each business is different. They have different products and services. And so what they want you to do is essentially tailor this risk-based approach to your institution. And so with recommendation 1, again, countries must assess their risks and then put controls in place to ensure that they mitigate the risks that they find their businesses are susceptible to. Okay, and so in this risk management, there are 3. To me, it's threefold. Again, just for persons who weren't in intro, again, international standard is recommendation 1. Then Bahamian law, FTRA section 5. Then central bank guidelines, and then your internal policy and procedure from your organization. So that's the laws or the guidelines that are related to risk management. We have that. FTRA, recommendation 1 from the 40 recommendations. Bahamian law, Financial Transaction Reporting Act, FTRA, section 5. Then your regulators guideline, whether it's Central Bank, Securities Commission, or what have you. And then your internal policy. Okay, and so what happened was in 2018, when this law came out, remember I said at that time there was a hands-on approach from the Central Bank and the Securities Commission. They created these analytics departments, and you know, no longer will be able to, you know, just check the box and say, yeah, we did it. No, they actually wanted a copy of your assessment. And so if you did not complete the assessment, you know, there was a fine out for about $5,000 per day if you did, you know, miss the deadline. And so under AML, there was a particular assessment, a risk assessment had to be done for AML, which was due in June of 2019. And then there's an enterprise-wide risk assessment that was due in October. And again, remember I told you a lot of persons showed up to class trying to figure out exactly, you know, the credit unions have been regulated now by the central bank. The credit union just picked whoever was there the longest, sent them to class. And one of the persons who were in my class, he is now in ICA. He actually got let go because he did not meet the first deadline for the risk assessment. He did not meet the second deadline. They were being charged per day. And again, they were just on a learning curve. Not that we never do this before. It's always been on the books, but it was never enforced. And so do we really have to do it? And so what happened with the country, of course, and I showed you all this already, the National Risk Assessment, again, is behind. The last time it was done was in 2015, 2016. And I don't know if we looked at the update. Was it this class that we looked at the update? And the update promised us that by large, the country's risk assessment was going to be done in 215 and 216. I think we went through that in intro where I went online to show you the last time we had a rating was in 214. And I said the net effect was that the perception is that our country is a high risk country, and therefore persons are saying they can't open accounts for us and they can't do business with us because we are high risk. And we tried to prove to them that we are not high risk, we are medium high, but because the assessment was done in 214, when I went to the Basil committee and say, see, our rating from 214, they said, come on, it's 2019. That's 5 years, we're not gonna accept that. So the net effect was that we weren't able to open up that account. And so again, on the screen, I'm sharing the screen, you see the Bahamas National Money Laundering Risk Assessment. And if we look at the update says significant measures have been in place, and the update goes on to tell us that in March 2021, this is when the update is going to be finished, and we will have a new country risk assessment. Now, again, remember, if we look at the old one, 2015, 2016, look at the table of contents. At that point, the Compliance Commission didn't, the 22 recommendations were deficient. And so, of course, the Compliance Commission wasn't up and running. The T's were not signed. Even gaming had just become regulated. So each sector has, to give a contribution, and they have a working group with a representative from each of the regulators who are trying to work together to collate all this information. So what happens is each regulator would send out to their industry a survey. Had each supervised financial institution fill out that survey and send information back to the regulator. They collate that information and determine what percentage, are the banks doing, or securities, or the gaming houses. Then they ask that each institution create a risk assessment and tailor it towards their business. Okay, so again, back to the credit union staff who, I've been here for 25 years. I'm the next one who is up for promotion. I don't really know anything about compliance. I'm not interested in compliance, but if you go and be the compliance officer, go down to the institute and go to school and try and find out what compliance is. Come back and try and do this risk assessment. Okay, and so of course, all that, and unfortunately, he got let go because, to digest it and try and understand it and all of that, in the midst of learning and then trying to carry it out, it was very difficult. So unfortunately, again, the regulators had no choice. We were being internationally watched. We had to enforce it. So each institution had to come up with this risk-based approach and how they would mitigate risk and what controls they would put in place. Okay, and so, there were some industry briefings, and in the industry briefings, they gave us they just basically told us each business is different. You have to tailor the risk assessment to your business. There's little information that we can give you, but whatever you come up with, send it to us and we will let you know if it's sufficient or not. And if it's, I guess they would compare it based on other risk assessments that they would have received. And they would then, accept it or reject it. And so the institution that I worked with, we sent in our risk assessment, and then they sent us back a questionnaire. And on this questionnaire, because we were regulated by both the central bank and the Securities Commission, they wanted to know the number of branches that we had. Did we have any outsourced functions? How many high risk accounts do we have? how many PEPs do we have, how many broker accounts do we have, the number of independent board members, the total number of clients, the total number of assets under administration, the total number of staff. And so they, I guess, based on the information that we sent, they wanted that additional information to be able to, I guess, support the country's risk assessment and say, you know, assets under administration for the total Bahamas was a certain amount. The total number of employees managing these assets, 500 and something. The total number or percentage of high risk clients are what have you. And so again, based on our total number of high risk, the different product, high risk products and service, all of that will determine whether or not the country itself is a high risk jurisdiction or not. And remember when we went online, I showed you all there are like 14 categories in which the regulator or the Basel Committee would characterize, you know, determine whether your country is high, medium, or low. And of course, we don't want to be overall high risk because a lot of countries won't do business with us. When we're high risk, we'll be subject to the enhanced due diligence. And of course, our rates and what have you will go up, our service fees will go up. And so again, we talked about the various initiatives that are in place and that the governor has been working on to ensure that we are not seen as high risk overall. And remember, we talked about being cash intensive. Okay, all of this is familiar. We've heard all of this before. Cassandra?
Yes.
You know
Yes.
this story, right? You know this story. Okay, good. Good. I guess just a refresher so we understand where we are. Okay, and so what it meant is that each you know, institution had to then create a risk assessment. And in the risk assessment, they want you to clearly set out like how your risk assessment works, how you risk rate the clients. And so if we look at risk, we are about 3 to 5 risk assessments have to be done. First, again, you risk rate the country, and then you risk rate the sector, the financial services sector, that gaming, insurance, banking, securities, what else? And then the non-financial sector. And then you risk rate each individual institution, and then that institution will risk rate their clients. Okay, so again, you want to ensure that you properly have a methodology set out that would explain exactly how you are risk rating or how you are like calculating risk and what controls you have in place. So the book says you must explain the methodology. And the methodology is simply, how does my form work? How many categories do I have on my risk rating form? 10 categories. And we looked at the Basel Committee, we saw they had 14 categories. And they said what percentage would go into those categories to determine what your overall risk is, whether it's high, medium, or low. And a lot of times, persons do not understand methodology. They don't understand, they just say you're high risk, but they can't explain to you what makes it high risk or what makes you high risk. So as compliance, we want to ensure that we understand methodology, we understand how the risk is calculated, we can explain it to staff, okay? And we can explain it to different units, okay? And so again, like I said, the risk framework is like threefold. You start with your risk appetite. That means what businesses will we take on? Will we take on the PEPs? What countries will we deal with? Will we deal with Russia or Latin America or Iran? What degree of risk we are capable of taking on? Will we offer trust accounts? And if we do offer the trust accounts, will we hire somebody that has a step qualification to ensure that, that person fully understands how a trust works, okay? And so you wanna ensure that you have all these proper controls in place, and you can explain exactly your risk framework, which is your risk appetite, your risk assessment of your business, and then your risk rating. This is how I will then risk rate my clients, okay? And so when we work on identification of risk, we want to, there are 4 steps in identifying and assessing risk, which is adopted from the iOS standard, and it's risk identification, risk analysis, risk evaluation, and risk treatment. Okay, and in risk identification, the company's exposure to risk, which requires external knowledge of the market and the company. You should also know the company's strategic and operational objectives, along with threats and opportunities related to the achievement of those objectives. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis, so it talks about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. Okay, so if you want to deal with your risk identification, you want to look at the strategic and operational objectives. You want to do a SWOT analysis on your business, and you want to discuss what the strengths of the business is, what the weaknesses are, what the opportunities are, what the threats are. And then you want, of course, to put controls in place to protect your business from those threats, okay? Or you want to look at opportunities. Is there opportunities for training? Is there opportunity, if we take on a product or service and we want to generate more money, but it's a trust, there's an opportunity to, ensure that you hire trained professionals, trained persons who would have worked, have the experience and trust, or have the step qualification. So you want to look at risk identification, and then there's risk analysis. Again, your business has to create, just like the Basil Committee created a risk rating form for countries, you then have to create that same risk rating form for your clients. And normally, overall, your clients become high, medium, or low, depending on the risk that they present to the business. So you create like an assessment of the probability that an event will occur, or the consequence of that event occurring. And again, once you would have risk rated that client, then you decide, I am going to then monitor this person annually because it's high risk, or every 3 years because it's low. Okay, so then risk evaluation, the company's risk appetite will determine again what business you're going to take on. Are we going to deal with these high risk countries or not? And again, which risk will be escalated to the board? All our PEPs must be reviewed by the board annually. All our PEPs must be approved by our board. So again, all of this will be documented. You will put this in writing. You will put this in policy and procedure. You will send this policy and procedure to your regulator. They will check to ensure that you have proper controls in place to mitigate these risks. Or if you don't, they will send you back correspondence saying, okay, you want to offer these products and services. However, you do not have like a proper segregation of duties. You don't have a proper approval process. You don't, you need to either, put another control in place to protect your business from getting oversights or missteps because of the appetite that your company would have chosen. Okay, and then risk treatment, again, transfer of risk avoidance, whether you want to mitigate some risks or implement a course of action in order to reduce the risk. And one example of that is your signature being protected. When I was at Royal Bank, I signed unlimited. And again, we would have had all the proper procedures in place, we would have had the controls in place. However, you cannot ever eliminate risk. So, you know, the fraudsters, they are very smarter than us. They could still defraud the bank or what have you. And so once, you know, an incident occurred, they would check to see, was Miss Bullard negligent? Did she check this? Transfer, the signature match, the person was authorized. It was within the profile, however, it still was fraud. Yeah, she did all her checks and balances and she was not negligent. And so therefore, we are protecting her signature against this loss. It's $1 million check that she signed, but it was a loss to the bank, and we call that indemnity insurance. And I think the Securities Commission makes it mandatory for you to have a specific amount of indemnity insurance, and that would then protect your staff. So you don't worry about, you know, the scammers are out there anyway. You have indemnity insurance or something in place to protect, you know, to mitigate the risk should an event occur, should there be, you know, some type of breach. Okay. Any questions so far? Are we understanding? Are we understanding what we read? Do we understand risk management and the controls that we have to put in place?
Miss Bullard, I understand it, right? I know that you always said that we could avoid risk, but we can't eradicate it. So I want to know, when implementing or making your company's risk management manual, where do you start?
Now you tell me what's your Bible? Yeah, who's for your regulators, policy and procedure, right? And the law. That's where you start. So remember, I always say, whoever regulates you, this is what you do. Let me just pull this up. You look at, if you're regulated by the central bank, you go, can you see the screen? So you go right to this table of contents if you're regulated by the central bank, and whatever they have in their table of contents, that's what you should have in yours. Okay, for your policy, or the Securities Commission, or the gaming board, whomever is your regulator, the Compliance Commission, and you go through the topics and you decide. You see where it says wholesale accounts. Do we offer wholesale accounts? No, we don't. So then we don't need to put that in, right? So we don't need to put on wholesale accounts. Do we do monitoring? Of course we do. And so of course we need to put in monitoring. Do we accept bearer share accounts? Yes, we do. So we need to put that in. Do we deal with high risk countries? Sorry? Yeah, we do. We don't offer bearer share accounts, but we can open bearer share accounts. So what happened with us 2 years ago, Panama stopped issuing bearer shares. And so we had at least 10 accounts on our books that were bearer share accounts out of Panama. So we had to call our clients and say, you either have to close your account or regularize your account and get memo and ads and what have you, and change from bearer shares to registered shares, and then we can keep the account open. And that wasn't a horrendous process, because you know some of those people had shares from, these accounts from 1990, and so it was very hard on them to go in and change it. Okay, so once that country offers bearer shares, then it's okay for you to have it. Okay, so whatever. If you don't deal with non-face-to-face customers, then you don't need it in your policy. But if you do, then you need it. If you don't have PEPs, if you don't have corresponding banking relationships, then you need it. High-risk countries, again, this is a part of the methodology. How do you know this country is high-risk? Ms. Bullitt said high-risk? How do you know? Where do you get that information from? No, from the Transparency International or the Basel Committee. So that's what you would document. High-risk countries according to the Basel Committee. Remember when we looked at the list of countries and we looked at, no, I don't think you were in true. Yeah, so we looked at it and we saw where the Bahamas is. Let me, for the persons who weren't in the intro, let me just pull that up. Let me see. See if we can pull it up. Country, I might need to pull up Basil country rating. Okay. Okay, so this is the Basil Index. For those of you who weren't in, and again, this is where we find out that it isn't Ms. Bullet who was saying, you know, the country is high risk or not. So this is the committee, and it tells you what each country rating is. And so this is a part of your methodology, meaning where do I get this information from for country rating? Where do I get this information to say this person is high, medium, or low? What methodology? Like, of course, no country wants to be high risk. And so again, which sources do they use? And they tell you right here, this is their methodology. The FATF Mutual Evaluation Report accounts for 35%. So based on what that report says, that will determine if you high, medium, or low. So we'll give you a scoring between, I guess up to 35% of your rating. And it'll tell you, it says quality of your framework is 65%, corruption index is 10%, financial transparency is 10%, public transparency and accountability is 5%. So this is the methodology. So this is how we could go back and argue if we are overall high risk and we say, hey, our mutual evaluation report said we were largely compliant. We had 22 deficient, we satisfied. I think there are 10 outstanding that have little tweaks that need to be done. So we can argue that overall our country should not be high risk. Okay, so in our individual institutions, we need to understand the methodology, and a lot of us don't. We need to understand what makes up our risk rating form and whether or not this person is truly high, medium, or low, based on the information that we have gathered on them. Okay, and then we need to risk rate our products and services. We need to risk rate again what types of businesses persons are in. Okay, and we don't make these things up. The methodology is saying, where do you get this information from? Again, in recent years now, after our correspondent bank said we don't do business with countries that have a CPI index of below 30. So of course, on our risk rating form, we added that field. So if you are from Madagascar or Russia or Venezuela, we want to properly assess you, and we know that we're going to have a problem with the correspondent bank. They said you can't send any money through us from those countries. So therefore, we put that indication on your risk rating form to know that there's going to be a problem, or your country has a CPI index that's lower. And so therefore, we want to properly assess you. Again, when monitoring, remember, like I told you the other day, you know, I used to pay for somebody their insurance in Spanish Wells, but they were from Lebanon. And when we looked at our sanctions list last week, we saw that the Bahamas did not have sufficient information to sanction Lebanon. So Lebanon was not a sanctioned country. However, when the bombings happened, the next week, our correspondent banks all over the US said, no, we can no longer send this money. And so, you know, I had to explain that to the customer, we can no longer send this money. So what should I have done? Then risk rated, look at his risk rating again, say perhaps the country perception index now has decreased. Okay, and all the transactions are being blocked. So either the customer can close out the account, or, you know, suppose we had 50% of our business was out of Lebanon, then what? What happens to that institution?
They would lose.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Or you would lose, suppose your largest customer or client was out of Lebanon. Then, okay, that would definitely, you know, affect your bottom line. So you want to understand your products and services. You want to risk rate them. You want to understand the country risks. You want to understand the channels and the products that are delivered. The products and services are delivered. Are they going to high risk countries? Will that have an effect on your business? And if it does, you want to have some type of control in place. You can't just stand up that day and say, you know, 50% of our business is Lebanon, and now it's blocked. What do we do? Just like there are a lot of, you know, Venezuelan business that is heavily sanctioned by the US. You know, what are we doing? What controls do we have in place to protect our institutions against, you know, with that money can't go in and out. We just have it sitting there on our bank accounts. Does that really make it profitable? You know, if the persons are from sanctioned countries and you cannot, you know, transact on their behalf. Okay, you want to understand, you know, who the roles of your employees. A lot of senior management feels like it's compliance job to, you know, assess the business. And when this risk enterprise-wide assessment came out, you know, the head of finance said, but I don't know anything about risk. Isn't that your job? I was compliance, I was not even risk, right? The head HR said the same thing. Credit said the same thing. And so they didn't know how to identify, you know, the risk that was from their department. And so everybody had to be trained because it's everybody's business, and it can be, you know, compliance. Compliance can't run the entire business. We need each manager, you know, engaged and aware of what risks their department brings, and we need their staff to understand, and we need them to understand the controls that need to be in place, because we are essentially the checkers. We can't be the checker checking the checker. So each manager, you know, I had to encourage them to put that on their job description, that, you know, they are responsible for the risks that their department is susceptible to. And so then you saw a lot of executives coming, trying to, you know, come in their ICA and get qualified so they would understand, you know, not that they were compliant, but because they were in senior positions. So regulated functions, again, have to be approved by the regulator. You can put it out in the paper. You can say I want a compliance officer or CEO or senior official one. And there are 3 regulated functions: senior official 1, senior official 2, and the MLRO, right? So you can hire these people, however, they have to be approved by the regulator, okay? And you want, there's a fit and proper test that they have to go through to ensure that they are fit and proper for that position. So again, all of these things you want to have documented, and you want to understand the business, the customers, the products, and the services. A lot of us just show up to work and we had an operational manual that say press enter, go 2 spaces down, hit F5, and, you know, and that's what we do. But we really don't understand how the business works, what risks we are susceptible to. We don't understand the controls that we have in place. A lot of people say, oh, I have to get 2 signatures, and the second signature never in place, and they mad because they have to get 2 signatures. No, that's a control. That's a control in place to mitigate the risk against. We want 4 eyes checking that transaction to ensure that, you know, for human error, and that people didn't make mistakes, or that somebody didn't try to infiltrate your system and it was fraud. But I have people who are first and second signatures, they don't even look. Oh, $1 million, they just sign it, they don't even look down at the paper. And so when it came time for somebody to defraud the system, who do you think they went to? Those same people who don't check, or the people who say the signature match, right? We don't have those people. The signature match, yeah, it match, okay, and they sign. Just within the profile, this person is sending out a lot of money now. Just within the profile, they asking you, they ain't checking. And so this is why, you know, the scammers, they always win this. They prey on our ignorance. Okay, and they prey on us being overworked and underpaid and disgruntled. And Friday afternoon, we want to rush out to see your Saturday weekend, and that's how they infiltrate the system. Okay, you want to understand your overseas customers and cross-border transactions. You want to understand the risk in other countries, because again, just like the PEP risk, the PEP is, you know, the definition of a PEP is more stringent in Mexico than it is in the UK. But we can't say this the Bahamas, right? We have to understand if we're going to do business with Mexico, we got to understand their risk and their policy and their procedures, okay? And we want to make sure that everybody is on board. Okay, we want to understand the external asset managers. You know, they sit in Switzerland or in New York or all around the world. We want to share our policy and procedure with them and get them to confirm that they are following Bahamian law. Okay, because we will be responsible. Okay, then we want to put a control library in place. We want for HR, finance, IT, you know, a lot of us, we don't understand IT risk. Okay, and I don't know if you all ever spoke to somebody at the computer room or the IT department. To me, they speak another language. For some reason, Ms. Bullitt had been at war at IT my whole career, trying to get them to understand, trying to get them to explain what they do and how they do it and what controls they have in place. Okay? So you want to control a library for each department. Okay? And again, or under each department, then you say good function. So for the account opening department, you want something, you know, what are the controls in place for customer due diligence? Okay? What are the controls we have in place for regular reviewers? We risk rate the client high, medium, and low, and based on their risk rating, the high clients will be checked annually, the low will be checked every 3 years, the medium will be checked every 2 years. What's the next control in place for regular customer reviews? All the high risk, or 90% of the high risk clients are assigned to a senior account manager in the private banking department. 10% assigned to a junior. And it's just for training purposes. You have to document all of that. Right. And then again, all this documentation is only as good as the date you did it, because things are ever changing. And so you don't want to just put this in place and never look back at it. You want to review it at least annually. And not that you have to change everything, but you want to review it and test it to make sure that it's effective and efficient and it makes sense. Okay? You want to go to the private banking department and say, show me Miss Bullitt, who is the senior, and show me her accounts, whether they're high, medium, or low. Or everybody is just served the clients, no, they ain't signed nowhere. But your control in place says that 90% are with your seniors and 10% are with your juniors. So how is this? You know, so you're leaving room for error. And it's, again, this is what audit comes in and checks. This is what compliance checks. This is what the regulators check. Whatever you have in writing, they are going to check it. So what I say, when audit comes, people scramble and no, have your policy and know that they are going to check based on your policy. You test your own policy and make sure it works. Make sure it makes sense. Make sure it's what you're doing, because a lot of time we write a policy as big as this book and we never look back at it. And the biggest problem in the world today is that we don't read it. And if we do read, we don't comprehend. We're too afraid to ask questions. And so we just go based on judgment every day and doing the wrong thing. And when the regulators come in, they ask for the CDs. We ain't never been to school. We might have the 10, 15 years of experience, but we ain't been to no seminar or no class. And so they end up saying your department does not have sufficient education or experience in it. So you have to hire some new people and let them go, or they have 2 years to upgrade their staff. Okay. Again, if we offer trust accounts, one of the controls we have in place is that we have a staff qualified person on staff. You can't have an entire trust department and no staff qualified person. I've seen it in institutions. Okay, that's risk. Okay, monitoring for thresholds. Everybody has a limit. Okay, there are proper segregations of duties. There's an A signatory group and a B signatory group. Controls to reduce the risk of tipping off. I've had many people say, compliance stuff, yeah, transaction. We don't know what happened. We put it through this with the account managers to say, oh, and then the account managers come down and say, could you please speak to the client if the client is upset? And you need to explain why their transaction ain't going through. Compliance does not speak to clients under no circumstance. Compliance is completely independent of the business. And your staff should be trained to never ever say that compliance stop a transaction, ever. Okay, because now, they could cause the business to be liable. And you would find that, on trading platforms, and compliance does not have to give you a reason why they stopped their transaction. Okay, so you have to find the right verbiage when you train your staff or how to communicate with their clients. You never ever say compliance stop their transaction, or with compliance, or I don't know what the hold up is. And I've had salespeople come to me and say, you have to give an X. No, I don't. You have to find a very savvy way to communicate, and everybody should be trained. So when they ask for the manager, the same message that the account officer gave, the manager, the CEO, whomever gives the same. Everybody should be on one accord. Okay, and again, or if you work at a larger company and you have a communications policy, everybody should be on the same page. But I've had people say, "Oh, compliance stop your transaction," and they ain't saying why. That's borderline tipping off. Okay, so be careful and train your person, your people, or your staff. Role-based training. Everybody should have a job description. On the job description, everybody should be responsible for AML. There should be a succession plan. If this person gets sick, dies, can't show back up to work, what do we do? There should be a relief person that goes around and can cover. Like I said, gone are the days when we can say, I don't know, or that worker stayed at them, split them off vacation. I filling in for Miss Bullet, but I don't know what she's do. No, that's what has happened, right? I guess if Miss Bullet say press and send it through, that's all I know. Okay, a lot of these people try on our ignorance. So you want to have these controls in place, you want to document them. What do we do? How do we do it? And then, like I say, a lot of times I see compliance hoarding information, they get gratification and people coming to them every day and asking them every day. No, that's a red flag. Yes, staff should know basic information. They should know how to protect your institution. They should know what the policy says, and the regulator now requests that you test them. So don't stand up there every year and train them this three phases of money laundering. No, test them on your policy and procedure. See if they are reading it. See if they do a challenge so everybody reads 3 or 4 pages, especially the policy that is applicable to your department. Okay, and no matter how thick it is, they need to make sure that they understand. Another common problem is like our account opening form have like version day 2003 on it in this 2020, this 2021, or policies have not been updated to include the new law. Okay, so you need to refresh your account opening forms. You need to refresh your policies and procedures. They need to be risk rated. They don't have to be completely changed every year, but there should be a review date. And when you make a change, you need to say, this is the change that I made. Okay, even with the central bank guidelines, I want to call them and say, listen, I have my old central bank guidelines and my new one. I used to look at Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 countries. I understand why y'all move it, but at least y'all should say that it can be found in what version. Because if you get audited at this time, I have a note on file that says, because this was a Schedule 2 country, I didn't take that piece of the central bank guideline and put that there to back it up, which I guess I should have, because now they don't even have that in their AML policy. And I have to go through so much avenues to explain that that's why I made the decision at that time. The law was that. So you want to make your notes. And that's why I say from intro, you should have been keeping your library and keep all these papers that you read and all this research that you do, because if you're going to be in compliance, you're going to come back to it. And that would cut down the amount of time that you have to do research. Okay? You want a compliance plan, and like I said, continuously changing, continuously monitoring. You want to not just, oh, I finished this book, put this to the side. No, it has to be reviewed. Okay? And once you, monitor the effectiveness and you test it, sometimes you could get an independent person to test it. With the risk rating, I work at a institution now where they just use words. There's no scoring. We moved to that because central bank had said industry-wide the scoring is off with the risk rating. And we'll talk about that when we get to, I guess, chapter 7, when we go over the risk rating. But when you email this around and you have 7 people in your department who do a risk rating, you find that that form picks up microbes. And those 7 people have 7 different versions of the risk rating. Okay, so you want to check and verify these things. So you should have a compliance plan in place or a audit plan. If there's no audit, then you have to fill in the gap. If there's no risk, then you have to fill in the gap. And that's what happens with compliance. We end up wearing so many different hats. And so you have to ensure that you control that. But you'll find that you are corporate governance, corporate administrator, compliance, risk, regulatory compliance, and legal sometimes. So you want to ensure that you keep that under control. And luckily, the Securities Commission has a policy in place that says compliance can only see the compliance officer. You can't make that person compliance and legal or compliance and risk. However, institutions, that's not really being enforced. And so institutions still try and give you 10 responsibilities. So you have to, ensure that the institution remains compliant and bring it to their attention. Okay, so it says, monitor the effectiveness of your controls by a variety of means using checking mechanisms, sample completed workflow. Again, if there are 100 transactions per month, you check 25. You don't have to check all 100, or you can say, I check all high risk and then 25% of the low and medium. Okay, and then test the risk rating. Go see if there are different versions. Go see if it up my goal to test and risk rate, you know, the steps. When I was at the Royal Bank, I was responsible for the Family Island branches, and you know, with verifying steps, I picked up the phone and I called them and I asked them, hi, you in the finance department, how do you do your month-end report? And I had the policy in front of me and I just checked off if they could tell me exactly what they did. But if they didn't, then I had to write a letter and say, I need to see their CV to see if they needed to go for training, or if they had sufficient experience, or if we needed to hire somebody else. Okay, so ensure that whatever department you work in, you know what the policy. You don't have to know all of this out of your head, but you have to understand what your function is, what controls are in place to protect you, and how to carry out your job properly, not exactly the way you were taught if it wasn't proper. Okay, and so that's why we end up getting in trouble, because we can't explain ourselves. But somebody infiltrates the system and we can't give an explanation. Or we say, I don't know. Okay, and I don't know is always unacceptable. Say, I'll find out, or, you know, you'll ask somebody. So it says regular review should be conducted on the risk-based approaches to money laundering and terrorist financing. Some review activities may be conducted by trigger events. Trigger events, the other day, the CPI index of Puerto Rico was dropped because of a hurricane. Does it have anything to do with banking? No. Okay, and so that's how detailed we have to be, because I was sitting there trying to wonder what happened to Puerto Rico. Why are my transfers being stopped? We don't do business with no country that has a CPI index below 30. Today, Puerto Rico was 65. After the hurricane, it didn't have a rating. So what did that mean? This is a US island. That's what happened. Okay, so not just financial things, or like the bombing for Lebanon. Okay, regulators focus on what a company documents, and that's what I said, and that's what they check. A regulator would want to see the documented procedures and establish a benchmark of what is in place so it can measure its performance. So know your policy and procedure, and of course, know your AML directive and what it says. A lot of times the risk appetite is not shared. I don't understand why. And then we have salespeople going out and opening up PEP accounts, and we don't do business with PEP. We have people bringing in accounts from Russia. We don't do business with Russia. Okay, so know the appetite of your business. See if it makes sense. Okay, there's something considered an undesirable account. What does your company say an undesirable account is? Is it if the person is charged or if they are convicted? It's two different things. And it has always caused the problem, because we had some people who were charged and then acquitted. But then we had some people who are convicted. And regulators came in and said, but you said charged. And these 4 people are charged and their accounts are still open on your books. So either you don't understand what is charged or convicted, or nobody read the policy. Okay, and when they do these audit reports, that's a note right there. And then you get 3 or 4 notes, then you have a bad audit report. Somebody has to be responsible there has to be an action plan in place. Or sometimes people just go home. Okay? So ensure that you understand the terminology and know what it means. Okay, so risk management, put the controls in place. Ensure you understand the controls. Test the controls and make sure that they are in fact effective. Test the people to make sure they understand. This is no point having this risk assessment in place and paper in somebody's office, and nobody even knows what risk we are susceptible to. When we were in intro, we read that paper on terrorism, when we saw that people went out and got loans to support terrorism. Somebody went down to social service and used their social service money. We were shocked, right? Did we think if we were a loan officer and somebody walked in the bank and said, I want a loan to pay school fees, that they was using it to send to support ISIS? We are moving towards a very diverse nation. We're moving everything online. There's going to be less face-to-face. Will the awareness be there, or will we be shocked? Some of us still ain't watched Dirty Money yet to give us some awareness. We just could be shocked that companies will hire, already be in trouble and trying to work around, and it'll appear as if they were fine because we don't have $1 billion. We don't know what million look like, talk about billion, so we in shock. And then you was us, the new upcoming leaders, who happy to get a cell phone office in a car. So we ain't worrying about the systems or the controls in place. You know, I went on an interview the other day in Laifiki, and they said, well, Ms. Bullard, you know, we pay you $100,000, but we don't need you to do anything. All our decisions are gonna be made in Switzerland. We just need you to sign off on it. Oh, okay. But Ms. Bullard say $100,000? $100,000, sure. We have this nice office in Laifiki overlooking the marina. We give you our card. You could travel. But we only need your signature. You will not make any decision.
Yeah, when the police come, they carry you.
Okay. And I from your last 6 months, 6 months. Who could bring Miss Bullet cigarettes and sweeteners?
Your children.
But the thing about it is, Miss Bullard, is I think we had this discussion about how the board and compliance sometimes are like people say they knock teeth or per se, because I feel as though like a lot of times persons don't view you with no respect. Like you said, they just view you as a signing authority.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's too because they know what they're doing behind or under the table, so they don't want her to be privy to that. They just want her signature over here to say that, okay, we followed all the protocols or the procedures, the guidelines, and it's been approved. And so you don't have to question anything, but when they dig deeper, then they realize, hey, this is actually just a cover-up.
Yeah, and I still trying to figure out whether people are just covering up or they simply do not know, because I've had some people, you know, with sanctioned countries, they want to open up an account with sanctioned countries and they say, oh, just change the address. Like, why are we so desperate for business that we are going to put ourselves, the reputation of the company get shut down for these type of things? Just change the address.
I have a
Because
question.
the money that they're making for all of that, they putting in their pocket. They putting in banks all over the world. So if the company gets shut down, they really aren't affected by that.
So if this little Bahamas branch shut down, the Yes, could go home. That ain't no big thing. That ain't no deal.
The Bahamian branch is just
Miss
a
Fuller,
Yes, sorry, yeah, Nelly. I guess me no big. It's a little fish in the pond. Go ahead, go there.
I have a friend who works for an offshore bank, and there is a particular account that she deals with that is under investigation. And even though the account is under investigation, and they're under investigation, and there's an order to not do any business or move anything from the account until the whatever the investigation is completed. So there's an order in place specifically for this particular account until the investigation is completed. And then her superiors at work wanted her to do a transaction on the account to pay for some notarized copies of something or whatever, and she refused to do it, and they threatened to fire her.
So did she still do it?
No, she refused to do
Oh.
it.
Okay.
But see, that's the thing
But she-
about it. She could refuse it, but she needs to put
To
everything
report
on
it.
file,
Yeah,
and she needs to keep a copy of her files.
Right, so I told
And
her, don't
document
speak with
everything.
them about it on the phone. I told her whatever communication she need to have with them, saying no, she won't, and explain her reasons why. Make sure, send it by email, and if she has access to the order, attach the order to the email, tag everyone she need to tag, and let them know that, but pursuant to the paragraph, whatever of the order, you're not allowed or whatever, and you don't feel comfortable with it, and so you're not going to do it, just to
Right.
kind of cover herself.
Right. You know, I have had a deceased case where the external asset manager, you know, power of attorney and all of those management agreements, they cease at death. So once you die, you are not allowed to give instructions anymore on these accounts. And the institution, you know, I blocked the accounts and I said, that's it. So they said that they are going to still pay the fees. I said, okay, I blocked the account. Y'all can do, if you all want to pay the fees, that's outside of, you know, the institution. You all write me a letter and say the institution or the bank has made the decision to pay the fees. Then fine, you could write that and I could put that on file, but I'm not approving it. And so they paid some fees to the external asset manager. And so now the external asset manager suing them because now he wants more money. And so, like I tell them, you all open up a can of worms. This is why I said no, block the account. Like when people are working with you, and they have understanding, you can make a decision and say, I made this decision based on the years of experience with this client and A, B, or C. But this person, immediately the wife, he was not divorced. So there's a wife and the wife does not agree with the external asset manager. Why would you go and approve a transaction for him? That's a can of worms. So by the time it says probate finish or whatever, the bank could expect legal action. Now, in the interim, the external asset manager who has no right threatening to sue the bank, and they calling me on the phone and telling me, oh, the external asset manager is suing us in Switzerland. I said, what is he going to sue us based on? That we are following Bahamian law? Based on what? Okay, so you will have the CEOs and various persons on the board or the committee, you know, say they are going to go around you. And I don't get in a knot over it. I said, okay, fine. I make my note to file and I send it to my special place where if they decide to put this file in the shredder, that I can retrieve it. And I go about my business, you know. The offshore world is very competitive. And so you have to be very savvy and find, it's just like the tax evasion versus the avoidance. If you could find a way to avoid legally or open these accounts, or the law says, listen, if you could do it, the seal or Wayne Monroe, I support it 100%. But if you cannot prove it to me and I think you are evading rather than avoiding, then no, then don't sign it. I don't get in a knot over it. You threaten to fire me. Threaten to fire me. I still ain't signing. And I don't want to be a part of a company that when I do not agree, I am going to be forced. I should never be intimidated and compliant. So fire me, let me get my 2 weeks pay or how much years I've been here, and let me go and report you to the regulator and I will go home. But I've had cases where they have gone around me and said the bank has made a decision. I said, okay, make a decision. When it come back to haunt you, remember, the bank has made a decision. And I've been in that predicament a few times, and it has always come back to haunt me. And I've been threatened to be fired too. And you have to be to that point where you just stand your ground. And this is why you need 5 revenue streams. And so when you are threatened to be fired, you're not compromised. And slowly after that threat, whether you are fired or not, you will see exactly what happens to that institution.
Okay, so Ms. Bullitt, I have a question. You were saying the external asset manager on the account had passed away.
No, the client had passed away.
Oh, okay.
So once
right.
that client is
Yeah,
deceased, all of those mandates and power of
Right.
attorneys and
yes,
immediate-
right,
yeah,
you are correct.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but now the external asset manager does not understand that he is suing the bank. I said, for what? Following the law? Because Switzerland and France, we have 2 clients. One's in Switzerland who passed away, one's in France who's passed away, and they are civil law jurisdictions. And so they presented us with bills from France and from Switzerland. However, they are civil law and Bahamas is common law. And so we can't follow those bills. So it had to be probated here. And so that EAM does not believe that it has to be probated here and does not want to pay the cost. Now the wife, who is the will says everything goes to the wife. The wife said, okay, Ms. Bullitt, I understand. Can you help me find a Bahamian lawyer? Which I did. And now he is suing us because we're following the law. Because we don't want to respect a civil law jurisdiction, which we can't. That's okay.
So
Well,
Ms.
that's
Bullitt,
a
do you
waste of
think
their-
these? No, I'll wait.
No, I was just making a statement, like, that's a waste of their time and resources.
Okay, well, they have the money. They have the money. And they have come back to me more than 10 times saying, Ms. Bullitt, are you sure? Are you sure? And I am even being harassed over the situation where I sent them the entire law of Switzerland and the entire law of the Bahamas, and I'm not even a lawyer. I said, go and get a legal opinion. I said, you are the CEO of this bank. If you wish to take another course of action, you're welcome to. However, I am not supporting it. Now you either wait until it's probated in the Bahamas, or you do whatever you feel like doing. You will go to jail. I can't stop you from going to jail. You have a choice. I advise you. You don't take my advice. And I see that's what happens a lot. We give advice to the board or we give advice to the management and they don't listen and we get all tied up. No, I don't. I do my work. And then you say you don't need me no more. Okay, I will leave. But trust me, when I leave, exactly what I left and you thought you was gonna do whilst I was gone will come to light.
Right. But they believe compliance officers don't know their jobs.
Right.
They are above the law.
Yes.
You must do what they say.
Yes.
When you know what is correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what would happen with me and you going to jail? No, you could fire me and I could go home and you go to jail by yourself.
But once you have your stuff documented, that's the
what
bottom line.
Yeah. Okay, so don't be intimidated and don't get overwhelmed when people don't agree. People won't agree with you. We don't live in perfect. So let them carry out their, if they have the authority to do it, let them do it. You just keep your policy, your procedure, and your documentation. And when you are called or summoned, you present it and let it be. Remember, you can't eliminate, you can't stop the evil people. You can't eliminate that. You can't change their minds. You could have a procedure in place, controls in place, and you could know right from wrong. And that's it. Don't die over it. or get sick over it. Because they will kill you if they could.
You find that happening more and more.
Yeah, and those small, those boutiques, they're the worst. They are the worst because they are desperate and they do anything to make money. And so they like I say, they're not very smart. That's the first thing. I am all for you being very smart and very savvy and knowing how to avoid to make money. But when you pretending like you avoiding and you're even smart enough to work around it with the system, but you have this attitude as if you're the best banker in the world, very uneducated. You would see the banks just close and they fail.
But Ms. Bullitt, I was gonna ask you, do you think these persons even do proper investigation before even setting up their shop in the Bahamas about our laws and our culture?
Of course,
So
of
it's-
course. Of course they do.
They
And
do or
look-
they don't?
Yeah, they look at, they pay the best attorneys. They look at our judicial system and see what a mess it is. And they see that they take advantage of all the loopholes, and they know Lucille and Wayne Monroe, and they know that they can win on technicalities. So they come here, but gone are the days.
They get comfortable and they realize that we don't know a whole lot of reporting, we don't have.
Right, right.
Look at our objection.
Yes.
And we say that
They can beat the system. Yeah, because again, we have central bank that, when they reprimand, they go by moral suasion. They're going to protect you from the reputational risk. They call you in, they give you a nice little meeting, they offer you tea, and they said, you have 30 days to shut this bank down, or we'll shut it down for you. And we've had some people
You
who
don't
say,
think,
So what would be
Sorry.
the reason for the shutdown though?
no, I mean, because they would have breached, they would have had a regulatory breach or whatever. Go read the newspaper. There are a few cases in there, where central bank would have called companies in and say quietly, let the people go and whatever, or put the money back, or you remove yourself. And persons have said, you cannot remove me. And it has gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court removed them. Okay? The Securities Commission is slightly different. The Securities Commission have a warning and notices, and do not do business with Swiss America, do not do business with Pineapple, do not do business with Doctors of Wisdom. You could go on their site and you will see all those notices. You see? But central bank protects you from the reputational risk. Now, some of them are so arrogant, they say, you can't tell me what to do, and then they go to the court, and then the court removes the person.
So
Ms.
if you see
Bullitt,
something
the word-
involuntary,
Sorry, let Godette go. Godette been trying to go.
oh, sorry for that.
Go
Sorry
ahead.
for that.
Go ahead.
no, I was asking about, you said a word that caught my attention, which is technicality. So the word technicality, I think in the financial sector, in terms of all of the recommendations, when we do get our auditing done by the FATF or whichever institution would do an audit for us or an assessment for us or an evaluation, those technicalities, when they look at those cases, isn't that seen as a weakness? And so
Yes.
that actually works against us. And so,
Yes.
I mean, you're a good lawyer. You got a international client off on a technicality, or you got a national client off on a technicality. But then, like, how does that affect us? I guess it is a bad thing.
Yeah. So that's why we revamped and repealed in 2018, and the laws are now more stringent. Again, when we put in the law for tax evasion, we put it that only if you tax evaded in the Bahamas, and subsequently we fixed that. So hopefully
Well, then they need to find them people who getting them other people off on technicalities, so they wouldn't do it no more because they're not making it out on everybody else.
You never heard that the lawmakers should be in jail. They have these because
I know, but I don't go to jail. Don't say that, Mama. But I don't go to jail.
Yeah, but the lawmakers should be the ones who are jails because they know better. And again, it's twofold. They had to use a staggered approach so it didn't wipe out the financial services sector. And then they protecting themselves. Because it could be them who be in charge of bribery and corruption. So of course, the bribery and corruption bill still from 2001 or to the Bribery Act from 2001 or two, and I'm sure that needs to be updated, but they can leave that for the last. because that could be against them. And so I'm sure they're going to turn that in a way to, even if I get all before the court, there's no way. I know how to beat this out, or they have to put it in a way to know how to beat it. I don't know. I just say. Okay, but just so you all understand the risk management and putting the controls in place. Symphony, you wanted to say something else? Symphony?
Sorry about that. I had my mic on mute. I don't yeah, I was gonna say something else, but I really don't recall it at this particular time. I was just, asking about these banks and the way that they set themselves. No, I remember now. So sometimes if you see voluntary liquidation, it's not because they didn't have no money, it's the fact that they got shut down.
No. Voluntary meaning that you voluntarily close down.
That's what I mean. So if
No,
if the
not that
central
you got
bank
shut
says,
down. No, because a bank recently did a voluntary liquidation. They just exited the Bahamas.
yeah, but you said if central bank come and have
No,
a
no,
meeting
no.
with you over tea.
No. What I'm saying is, when you don't look at the liquidation, when it says voluntary, that means that bank decided, not that the central bank. Is involuntary when you start to look at what happened with this bank. When it's involuntary. You see? And so that's what I'm saying. So it hasn't been many banks, but what I'm saying is central bank protects you against the reputational risk. Some people didn't want that protection, you see? And they went a bit further. And that's with persons being like removed and stuff like that. It wasn't like an entire bank. I think Swiss America was one, but I think the Securities Commission closed that one down. But all that is on the website.
But the thing about it is, I knew people that worked there, and that's jobs gone for bad behavior.
Yeah, but too many breaches. So you have, again, it's more hands-on now. The laws have changed, but you got away prior to 218. You can't get away with it anymore. In most cases, unless
it is what it is.
You're heavily connected. Unless you have that Bin Laden network, then you don't get away with it.
Also, you had mentioned something about a corresponding bank earlier, and I really wasn't too sure about that terminology. I think I understand, but I wasn't too sure about that.
Okay, so where the bank where we send the wires. Remember, we talked about correspondent banking when we said the U.S. has this extraterritorial arm where they have all the money running through the U.S. Fed, and so that's how they can how Section 319 of the Patriot Act is applicable to a non-U.S. institution like us, the Bahamas, or country, right? So the J.P. Morgans, the Deutsche Bank, the Citibank, they are the correspondent banks that send money all around the world. So you would send the money. It's about 8 or 9 of them. If you go read up on the Wolfsburg principles, that's the association of correspondent banks. And so all the money that is wired around the world goes through those banks. And so if it's their U.S. division, the U.S. has the money fixed, so all that money would touch the Fed at one point in transition transfer. Yeah, and so that is how.
So then SEPA is on a different level than whereby it just is within the European Union, but the money is transferred.
Who's that?
SEPA. So it's like, let's just say if you want to move money from France to Germany, it don't have to go to the US.
Right.
It's on one single European. So basically, what you're trying to say that they still might have their hands in that.
No, so what happens, like we have a big Venezuelan book, and of course Venezuela is sanctioned by the US, and so we would not send our Venezuelan money through the US. We'd send that to our European Union or UK banks. So Deutsche Bank will have a UK division or, like that. So that would not go to the US. Yeah, so you find like European countries, like they support like Russia, Cuba, Iran and stuff like that. So that's how they can do business. But sometimes you find that those divisions are sanctioned because they are doing business with those countries.
Okay, so what you're saying is your corresponding bank for the sake of discussion would be Bank of America.
Right,
They're not doing business with Lebanon, so you can't do business because how you can get the money from Bahamas to Lebanon?
right. So you need to have
Okay.
like four, you need to have 4 or 5 different European correspondent banks, and 2 of them need to be out of the US, or you would find that you cannot do business.
But the question is, if Deutsche Bank is still operating in the US, can the US put pressure on them to see what all they was doing on their European leg?
They have, but I think they cut the business completely. So, or they have different shareholders, so they did something so that the US cannot intervene on that behalf. Because I know specifically we have Venezuelan clients, we don't send their money to the US at all.
Fair
We
enough.
send that
Fair
to
enough.
our UK banks. Yeah, yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, any other questions or concerns? No? Clear as mud? Okay, so the next chapter talks about this again, designing the AML CFE strategy. It'll go talk more about cross-border correspondent banking and high risk, assessing product risk and assessing customer risk. So take a read of that, and then the different types of risk, concentration risk, regulatory risk, and what have you. And so we'll go through that. Okay, and then chapter 6 again, back to customer due diligence, basically the same thing. And then risk profiling. So like I said, about 4 chapters on just understanding risk and how it's applicable to the entire institution. No, next week is just 5. No, but I was just saying the next couple of chapters all deal with risk. Okay, so of course risk is gonna be heavy on the exam. Just so you know. Yeah. Okay. Good. We all good? Clear as mud? We understand a little bit?
So, if I want to attempt the question on tax evasion, tax avoidance, is it just writing out like the examples of what tax evasion is or tax avoidance is?
And writing a case on each one.
Creating a case.
No, cases are online. So there's a big case on tax evasion with Shakira in the Bahamas, where she said that she lived in the Bahamas. She bought a house on Paradise Island and she didn't want to pay taxes in Spain, but then she had advertised that she was on tour in Spain for so many days, and the reasonableness test says 183 days or more. So there are cases out there. So you want to explain what it is and then say, a case or how you would avoid versus evade.
Well, Ms. Bullard, since tax avoidance isn't illegal, they wouldn't really have cases on that now, would they?
No, I said give an example of how you would avoid, and you can give a case on evading.
Okay.
Yeah. So your example will be bringing in unassembled furniture, right?
Unassembled furniture?
Yeah. So 45% for assembled furniture, 5% for unassembled furniture, 5% for energy efficient, 25% for non-energy efficient.
Yeah, those are examples, but when you're talking about cases.
No, that's why I said you could provide an example on avoidance and a case on evasion.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Bullard, I took mine from a multinational corporation standpoint instead of an individual standpoint. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Once you explain it properly, because persons, we talk about it and they say they understand, but in terms of writing, they get mixed up still. Yeah. Yeah.
What are you guys referring to?
Question 4. Tax evasion versus tax avoidance.
So the case on evasion, an example.
On avoidance, yeah. Okay, so anything else? No? Okay, so I trust that everybody has a productive week, and remember to send your invites to the group, and take somebody with you and check on the persons in the group, make sure everybody is okay, and please network and study together and help each other. There's a lot of information, but like I said, it's achievable, and we're gonna learn how to scale it down and ensure that we all get full points at the end. I'm more than certain that we'll get full points. So no worries, and don't overthink it, and you'll see your benefits. Your 10% and your 5%, and everybody will be successful. Okay,
Why, thank you.
thank you. Okay, so have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, take care.
Good evening.
Good night.
Same setup on it.